Good evening. My name is Buffy from the Recovering Perfectionist Mama podcast, Grace in Progress. If you haven't met me before, I am actually a women's lifestyle creator on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, talking about topics such as relationships, both marriage and children, as well as female friendships, as well as self-empowerment, self-improvement topics, health topics such as gut biome, cycle syncing, as well as the functional fitness, fitness and nutrition, self-empowerment, gratitude, and various other topics that women are interested in. Ultimately, I kind of think it's a big umbrella about leveling up. I truly believe that everyone deserves to have the knowledge and the wherewithal and the ability to know about these things, so that if they have a certain interest in certain topics, that they can level up and live the life that they want to live, as well as show their children that it's possible and show others that it's possible, because ultimately we only have one life to live and we got to do the best we can and enjoy it while we can. And so that is my goal for everyone. I myself like to know a lot of different things just for knowledge base. I like to learn things, and I want to share some of the things that I've learned with all of you and help you all level up, right? Because ultimately, isn't leveling up the best prize? So today we're going to talk about rewiring the good mother narrative, releasing unrealistic expectations. And oftentimes we don't realize that we are holding on to things that we need to let go, because it's really easy to buy into the lie that women can have it all, that women should be a certain way, that there is a good mother, and that we need to be the best mother that we can be, the perfect mother. Well, unfortunately, the perfect mother doesn't exist, right? And we all have been fighting for that in our heads. We've been in this battle with ourselves about, well, I'm pretty sure that Sally is probably the perfect mother, and she probably never gets upset with her kids, and she's probably patient all the time, and she probably fixes them Pinterest-worthy breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And she does all the cool things with them, and they have all the best birthday parties. Comparison is the thief of joy. We always think that somebody else is doing better than what we're doing. We always feel like we are at the short end of the stick, that the things that we're doing are not good enough, that other people are doing better, and that we need to step up our game. When ultimately our children are not demanding that. There are not other people saying that we're doing a terrible job. We, our inner critic, are the ones that are saying those things to us and making us self-conscious and making us worried for no reason. If you are there for your child, if you have a relationship with your child, it doesn't require perfection. It requires presence and love and connection and quality time. Do you ever feel like no matter how hard you try, you're never quite the good mother you're supposed to be? The spotless house, the perfect meals, the endless patience, it's exhausting. Today, we're rewriting the script. Together, we'll challenge the good mother myth and create a version of motherhood that's authentic, joyful, and sustainable. My favorite word in all of that is authentic, because I truly believe that being an authentic mother and being real with your children and being honest with them and showing them what life is really about is our ultimate goal. We don't want to have children who are going through life putting on appearances, pretending to be people that they're not, because that can stunt their growth when it comes to relationships, friendships, trust, all sorts of things. I'm very real with my children. I literally let them know I'm not perfect. I wish I were, but I'm not, right? And I never will be. And that's okay. Admitting that, we're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect. And showing them that showing who they actually are is very important, because it's authenticity. People can recognize authenticity from a mile away, just like they can recognize phoniness from a mile away, right? And that's one thing that you can expect from me. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to have non-judgmental conversations with you. And I'm going to tell you what I've learned, my take on things. It may not be your take on things, and that's okay. People can have different opinions, and I respect different opinions, right? Because that's what adults do. And just because you don't ultimately agree with everything someone says doesn't mean you hate them, doesn't mean you wish them ill will, any of that. And so I just want to let you know that that's the type of person that I am. And I'll be honest with you too. Ultimately, that's just the kind of person that I am. So naming the good mother narrative. There is a cultural idea, I feel like, in our country about the good mother. And I'm sure that I'm going to describe the mother that you truly see yourself, right? She's selfless. She's always calm. And her kids are always thriving. They look like they just came out of like a Macy's or a Nordstrom's campaign ad, is what they look like. No hair is out of place. There is no evidence of, today's breakfast or, today's lunch or whatever on their face. They're perfectly manicured. They're well behaved. They don't speak unless spoken to, right? Isn't that what people used to say in decades earlier? And they're always thriving, always smiling, dressed to the nines. So essentially, the other thing that we have going probably against us when we're trying to get rid of the perfect mother narrative is the social media examples, like Pinterest, for instance. People always used to say, remember, Pinterest worthy, right? And a lot of people are starting to realize that, yes, social media is a great thing. However, it's not perfect. We cannot believe every single thing that we see on social media because a lot of it is skits. A lot of it is for performance only, because people are so concerned about essentially impressing others that they're not being their true selves. How many of those children influencers had parents who were actually kind of using them to get the money, but were being really using them to get the money, but they weren't taking care of them. They were actually exploiting them. There is a hidden cost to motherhood, right? And that can be family expectations, meaning you might have a scenario where your family thinks that you need to be doing certain things that you're not doing. For instance, in our family, I homeschool my children. And when we initially started doing that, that was a big like, oh my goodness, like, why are you doing that? Why don't you send them to school? Everyone else sends them to school and all these things, right? But ultimately, we have to blaze our own path. Our family has to decide what is good for us, just as your family has to decide what's good for you. But also, there is a hidden cost to motherhood sometimes. It can be burnout, just because it can be a lot at times, right? But ultimately, I think that our love sees us through. And I think that if we take the time to use self-care and to get away for a little bit here and there, my spouse and I actually usually do date nights on Fridays. So that gives us a chance to have a conversation, to check in, to make sure that, we're both still kind of doing well and things like that. And to maybe talk about actionable tips and strategies that we can take to make things better. And then also there's like the resentment sometimes because it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm enmeshed in this. Like there's so much to do. I have the running checklist going like a million times a minute, like in my head. And I feel like I'm never going to get everything done that I want to get. And I'm a very type A person. So I like to have like to-do lists and like check them off. Like I love the achievement of checking things off. Well, with motherhood, there is an endless to-do list. And you never get everything checked off, and you're never going to get everything checked off. And so that is the achievement side of me, the side of me that wants to be a perfectionist and wants to get stuff done and things like that. But there's also the side of me that's like, I'm burnt out. Like I just need some time to just recharge, reset, and hope tomorrow's a better day. And so a journaling prompt that you can actually explore a little bit further are what messages about being a good mother did I absorb growing up or from society? And I think a lot of us were influenced by sitcoms at the time. Like I just remember being appalled by the Roseanne character because I was like, oh my goodness, like if I had a mother like that would just be so difficult, or Peg Bundy, you know what I mean? Versus some of the loving mothers like Carol Brady. I mean, she seemed like she cared for all of her children. And it was nice to kind of see like how she would just, give them like the little tidbits of wisdom, and they would go off with it, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but she always had a big smile on her face, and she was dressed to the nines, wasn't she? And so jot down 3 specific shoulds that you feel daily. This will bring your awareness to it, and you can actually take that thought captive essentially and say, is this really reality, or is this just what I've been ingrained to believe? Do I really believe this? And what was the start of it? I think if you take some time to actually look back and kind of challenge your beliefs in some ways, and maybe you can actually figure out the start of it, like what started that belief in you that, women need to, be dressed to the nines constantly, even if they're vacuuming, and even if they're doing dishes, and even if they're running errands, and kind of ask yourself, like, what started that idea and what kept it going? So, common unrealistic beliefs. Let's talk about unrealistic expectations. Include, I must enjoy every moment. People say, it goes so fast, like you're going to miss it, like you're going to blink and it's going to be gone. That always made me feel very, very nostalgic, very bittersweet, very sad, very much like, oh my goodness, like if I take like a 10-second nap, I'm going to miss out on all of this. Like one day I'm going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have this back. Yes, I enjoy my kids. Yes, I enjoy spending time with them. Yes, I like to homeschool them for the most part. We do have moments where they don't want to do what they're supposed to do. But ultimately, I love my children. That's why I have 5. And I would not take back one single one, as would neither of you, I'm sure. And so each child is unique. Each child is different. And it's been a great experience, especially for me as an only child who is also married to an only child. So we had to learn from scratch. And we went big or went home, and we had 5. So thankful for them, each one of them. And it is glorious. I always wanted a big family as an only child, which I didn't get one. So my spouse and I had to create our own. So there we go. So the other thing is, it's like it's unrealistic to think my children's success defines me. No, your children are an individual just as you are an individual. And oftentimes parents who feel insecure oftentimes want to take on their child's accomplishments as some sort of validation that they're raising good kids. Ultimately that can potentially be luck of the draw. You're going to have good experiences with your kids, and you might have negative experiences with your kids. But ultimately each child stands for what they do and who they are, and their uniqueness and their individuality is important. We can't take on that responsibility. We can take on the responsibility to teach them and to guide them. I actually learned of something today called the lighthouse parenting technique, essentially where you're there to guide, not control. You're there to be that beacon in the night when they need you and in the day when they need you, but you are not pressuring them. You're not influencing them. You're assisting them. When they come to you, you're there, like the lighthouse that they need. It's not meant to be a control aspect. It's not meant to be, there's gentle parenting, there's authoritative parenting, there's all sorts of different kinds of parenting. And so the other thing too is it's like, I can never need help. And I went through a period of that for a while. I felt like it was my responsibility, my duty, because I had chosen to homeschool the kids. I had chosen to essentially decide to make them my focus, that I needed to do it all on my own. But no person is an island. Everyone needs some sort of support. And I'm lucky to have support. I used to have support from my grandparents, which was fantastic. But my grandmother passed recently, and my grandfather, he's kind of having some health issues. So, but ultimately, that's when people who are like family members, friends can step in and love your kids like you do and offer you encouragement and recharging and be able to help you with kind of that situation in life, right? Parenting in some ways. And also, I know some of you have probably heard of mental load. Mental load is literally the weight of carrying, keeping appointments and Christmas gifts and birthday gifts and appointments and extracurricular activities and doing homework and all that. That is called the mental load. And is it difficult? Sometimes it can be, especially when there's a lot going on at once. And it sounds like, some people are like, oh, that's frou-frou. Like everybody can just look at your calendar. Like that's not that big of a deal, but there's more to it than that. And it can be a complex thing. It can be something that some women are kind of embarrassed about to say, hey, I feel like overloaded, and it can be difficult. And sometimes people just don't understand that. So I used to think that to be a perfect mother meant that I should do everything possible that I can do with my kids. So if they wanted to do something, I essentially was like, I should be the parent that does not break a promise. And I actually had a scenario where I had actually had baby number 4 early, and I had promised my oldest son that I was going to spend some time with him. And so it ended up that I had to end up having the baby that day. So my son was like, well, where's mommy at? Like she said that she was going to go to the doctor's appointment and she was going to be right back and we were going to have our day. And I fully intended to do that, but something else came up, right? Famous last words, I'll be right back, right? I was not right back. But my son actually, I believe he was like 6, I think, 5 or 6. And he said, well, I know mom didn't intentionally break that. Mommy didn't intentionally break that. It was just that, she had to have a baby today. So no big deal, So I think ultimately we put a lot of extra pressure on ourselves that our kids often don't, because they understand that. And so understanding the brain's wiring, the brain's negativity bias and habit loops, right? We tend to have pathways in our brain that are well trodden. And there are certain people that are more prone to negative thoughts, and there's other people who are more prone to positivity. But the brain likes the chosen path, right? They don't want to go off the beaten path. They want to go on the path that is ready for them, well-traveled, and it's their way, right? And so we just kind of get into that loop. That's doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That's not going to happen. But we do have the ability to rewire our brain. We do have the ability. It's going to be a little bit difficult, obviously, because, it's like when you have that route that you always come home on, you don't want to go, no, I can't go right. I always go left. I always go left. That's essentially what we're doing when we continue to doing the same patterns over and over. It's almost instinctual. It's almost like automatic. And so the other thing is repeated should thoughts create neural pathways, which is those things that you have your own little pathways, you have your own shortcuts. That's where it is. Good news. Neuroplasticity means we can rewire through conscious practice. So that's when I talked about taking the thought captive. It's like, stop. Is that reality? No, it's not. That is not actual fact. We need to stop and we need to reframe it, and we need to talk about what is actual reality and what is not. So let me give you an actionable strategy for this. The thought awareness pause. 3 times a day, stop and ask, is this thought a script or is it my truth? I will never be a good mother, for instance, to give you an example. I will never be a good mother. Is that a thought? Is this thought a script or is it my truth? Obviously, it's not your truth because you are a good mother, right? That thought is not your truth. You do not have to accept that, nor should you accept that. So let's talk about rewiring practices. What things that could help you rewire your brain? 1, compassionate self-talk. I know oftentimes that can be easier said than done because some of us are more prone to negative self-talk, and we talk to ourselves how we would talk to someone, I don't know, that we don't like. And that's not cool, because ultimately we're going to be with ourselves for a very long time, and we need to start giving ourselves a hand up instead of a hand down. Replace the I'm failing with I'm learning and growing. And these could actually be mantras that you could help rewire your neural pathway. Pair with a hand over heart breath. So essentially you're bringing yourself back to yourself with the awareness that your heart is beating, that you're fully aware and you're in the moment. And touching yourself also makes it a little bit more personal and brings you back to exactly where you are. Set sustainable standards. Create a must-do versus a nice-to-do list. That is a really good strategy, because ultimately, if I had my way when I'm thinking realistically, in quotes, I'm like, I could easily get like 30 things done today. Yeah, no, I can't. Maybe if I had a nice-to-do list, I could shift some things on there, but 30 to-do list tasks, that would take I don't even know how long. Can't even imagine. And choose 3 non-negotiables, like family dinner or a bedtime story, and release the rest. And don't feel guilty about releasing the rest, because you're only one person and you can't do everything at once, even though you feel like you're Superwoman sometimes or Wonder Woman sometimes, right? But we have to be realistic. We need to not overload ourselves. Micro moments of joy. Find 60-second rituals, a favorite song, a candle at bedtime, or a morning stretch for your micro moments of joy. And get as many of them as you can if you feel like it. Support systems. You need to identify one person to text for a quick vent or laugh. And normalize asking for help. Swap the word help with teamwork. That is definitely seems more palatable than help, right? Help kind of seems like you're drowning and you're asking for a life preserver. But just remember, the person that you've chosen actually knows you, they love you, they want the best for you. So asking for help isn't going to put them out, especially if you all have a mutually beneficial relationship and you know what each other's going through. Let's talk about integration and guided mini practice. A guided reflection. Close your eyes and picture one should floating away like a balloon. Breathe in, I am enough. Breathe out, I release what isn't mine. I would encourage you repeating this visualization anytime comparison sets in, because ultimately comparison sets you up for failure. Comparison sets you up for feeling like you're at the bottom of the stack. Comparison makes you feel inadequate, damaged, like everyone is thinking that you're not capable, right? And that couldn't be further from the truth. Oftentimes we put our own thoughts onto other people. So we're like, I bet, so-and-so is thinking, I'm a terrible mom and I don't do this and I don't do that. And you know what? That person is too worried about what is going on in their own life to worry about what's going on with yours. Or let's hope that they do. Because ultimately everyone is worried about the same thing, that they're failing. And that other people notice and other people think that they're terrible mothers, right? Wouldn't that be the worst thing to say about someone or to feel? Don't feel that way, because ultimately a lot of people are too concerned about their own life to be thinking and having time to cast stones at you. So recap, let's talk about that. So we literally talked about identifying the narrative and whether it's truth or it's your reality, right? Is it just a thought or is it your truth? And then challenging your unrealistic expectations. We all have them. We just got to suss them out and, essentially challenge them if they're in need of challenging. And you can rewire your brain with awareness, compassion, and support, a 3-pronged approach. Remember, a good mother is simply a real mother, one who loves, learns, and grows. Thank you for sharing this space with me today. Again, I'm Buffy from Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress. You can also find me at recovering_perfectionist_mama on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And so I want to say, I think you should choose one practice today, maybe that thought awareness pause or the must-do list, and see how it lightens your load. If this episode resonated, please share it with a friend who needs to hear that she's already enough, and subscribe so you never miss a new conversation about mindful, real motherhood. Perfection is a myth, and the good mother narrative is ready to be rewritten. In this 30-minute episode, we unpacked cultural expectations, and we shared practical tools to release guilt, embrace imperfection, and create a motherhood that feels like you. Listen now. Tag a mama friend who's ready to drop the impossible good mother script and step into her own story. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.